Good discussion, commissioners. Thank you.
I'm gonna open the mics and on this fresh recording here. So just so you know, the public is coming in. And we're ready to go.
Thank you. Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 9th. I'm Assistant Attorney General Ed Hamrick, and I represent the State Board of Land Commissioners. This morning, the board has been in executive session and is now back on the record. The discussion in executive session was limited to a discussion of the potential transaction of real property. Premature disclosure of information discussed may give a competitive bargaining advantage to a person whose interests may be adverse to the trust interest. This discussion was authorized under 24-64023A 1 and 2 and 3 of the Colorado Revised Statute. No decisions were made in executive session, and the board is ready to proceed with its regular agenda of the board meeting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Councilor. All right. Welcome back to the April meeting of Colorado State Board of Land Commissioners, and we'll proceed with our regular agenda. The first thing I'd like to ask is if anyone in the room or online has any public comments regarding non-agenda items. And we have received and reviewed public comments that have been submitted.
So folks listening along online, if you were here to make a comment to the board on any item that does not appear on this month's agenda, now is the time to do that. Please use the raise hand feature and we'll allow you to address the board directly.
No?
No hands, Commissioner.
Okay. Seeing none in the room?
None in the room.
Then let's move on to announcements. Director Rosmarino, do you have any announcements for now?
I do, Chair.
All right.
I'll go quickly though. So my first announcement is to congratulate the chair being unanimously confirmed by the Senate on March 24th. So congratulations, Chair, for another 4-year term.
Stuck with me.
Yay. I also want to recognize Commissioner Harvey, who is slated to be inducted into the Aspen Hall of Fame in 3 days. Congratulations.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
I was hoping for Rookie of the Year, but I'll take this instead.
I know that the chair mentioned that we went out on a Lesser Prairie Chicken tour this morning and wanted to thank Jonathan Wrights of CPW, although he does not need more business in this regard. He's got a long line of people who want to see chickens with him, but really wonderful tour. Thanks, Jonathan. And then I want to turn it over to Assistant Director Holt.
Thank you, Assistant Director Elliot Hoyt. I had just a few words for the announcements regarding a meeting that we had last week, Tuesday, in this very room. We had a public meeting for our agricultural lessees that were invited to a discussion and briefing regarding an item that you're going to hear shortly about our stewardship action plan related to the Lesser Prairie Chicken. We were joined by Jonathan Wrights and other CPW members, as well as staff, Mindy Gottsagen, your Stewardship and Ecosystem Program Manager, was presenting. We also had Tom Laka, the acting South Central District Manager. We had Eric Van Dyke, the Southwest District Manager here, as well as Jesse Price, the Regenerative Agriculture Program Manager, and Jackson Donnell, the District Resource Specialist for the South. So it was a good meeting. We had 27 people showed up, which was about twice what the number of people registered, which was wonderful, representing about 20 agricultural leases. It was a great meeting. Mindy reviewed the stewardship action plan, which you'll hear about, and walk through when it was first initiated in 2020 and what we've learned since 2020, and then some recommendations for going forward, so that everybody could hear that. We got comments from the group. It was a good discussion. And then CPW presented on some programs, including incentive programs and so forth, for agricultural producers related to this topic. Because as you know, and you've heard this morning, lesser prairie chickens need our help. So it was a great opportunity to engage with our lessees and to get feedback. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, well, that was a lot. And now we'll welcome Tim Brass from the Department of Natural Resources.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Brass, Assistant Director for Parks, Wildlife, and Lands at DNR, and glad to be here this morning to provide an update on behalf of. First, I wanted to provide a couple of quick staffing updates. Folks may have heard that DNR's Legislative Director, Daphne Gervais, recently took a new role over at CPW as the Deputy Assistant Director of Partnerships. Where she's going to be leading work on management of the implementation of the Colorado Outdoor Strategy, Regional Partnership Initiative, Outdoor Equity Grant Program, as well as the Philanthropy Program in CPW. To temporarily fill her shoes, DNR hired Sarah Hamming to serve as our acting legislative director. Sarah previously was serving as CPW's legislative analyst, and the job posting for the permanent position has been posted and applications are currently being accepted. Moving on to the budget, the Joint Budget Committee closed the budget on April 1st, and the long bill was introduced in the House last Monday. We expect it to be in the Senate the following week. We're going to be monitoring closely for any amendments that may affect state courts FY 26-27 budget. Moving on to legislative updates, DNR's Human Bear Conflict Priority Bill was recently introduced as House Bill 1342. As a reminder, this bill came out of the Human Bear Conflict Working Group, and it will give CPW law enforcement staff the tools they need to adequately address cases where people are negligently feeding or luring bears. DNR's underground injection well legislation, that's House Bill 1112, has also been moving through the legislature with bipartisan support. That is now passed out of the House committees and will be moving over to the Senate soon. The Outdoor Opportunities Act passed through both the House and is now making its way through the Senate. We expect that to be making its way to the governor for signature here soon. Moving on to federal updates, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is in the process of reopening a status review on the 2016 petition to add lesser prairie chickens to the endangered species list. They're updating the species status assessment as part of this review. DNR is a member of the lesser prairie chicken technical team, which includes technical members from all 5 chicken states. We're meeting weekly and be sure to keep you all up to date as that process develops. The U.S. Forest Service is continuing its land management plan revision process for the Cimarron and Comanche National Grasslands. Forest Service is currently hosting a series of workshops throughout the month of April to articulate the need to change the plan and outline vision for that plan. The Army Corps of Engineers recently ended the public scoping period for the proposed Perkins County Canal project with comments due last Monday. DNR provided comments that were developed by CPW, CWCB, and DWR, and we have a press release available on our website with a copy of those comments for folks who are interested in getting additional information. Moving on to water, on March 17th, Governor Polis activated the Drought Task Force and the Phase 2 of Colorado's Drought Response Plan. The Drought Task Force, which was last activated in 2020, brings together senior leadership from state agencies, including the Department of Natural Resources, Department of Agriculture, Department of Local Affairs, as well as the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. The first meeting of that task force is set for April 10th. Moving on to energy, ECMC voted to adopt CPW's updated HPH maps for the Southeast region, with a notable statewide findings, including a 35% increase in Greater Prairie chicken leks, as well as an expanded golden eagle nest identification following their first ever helicopter surveys in some previously inaccessible terrain. Additionally, November 2024 blizzard and some GPS data from Collard Gulf helped refine mapping there in that region. The three geologic storage stewardship enterprise board members are up for confirmation hearings in Senate Ag here today. And the EPA officially advanced Colorado's Class 6 primacy application to the final federal rulemaking phase. On that proposed rule was published in the Federal Register on March 19th. This triggered a 45-day public comment period, placing the state on track to gain regulatory authority over carbon sequestration wells by July or August this year. Lastly, moving on to Parks and Wildlife, 3 of the CPW Commission appointees will be up for confirmation hearing in Senate Ag on April 22nd. CPW is going to be hosting its annual Partners in the Outdoors Conference, April 27th through the 29th in Colorado Springs. And on the 29th, Director Rose Morito and myself will be leading a presentation and a discussion on the charge of the HB 25-1332 working group. Hope that presentation will be a good way to engage key partners in the outdoor recreation and conservation space, the charge of that working group. That concludes my remarks, and happy to answer any questions folks may have.
Thank you, Tim. Commissioners online or in the room, questions? Doesn't appear so. Thank you very much for joining us in Lamar. And before we move to the next part of the agenda, which is our final action items, I'd like to sort of operationally let everyone know that I believe we have a lunch break scheduled for 1 o'clock where lunch will be delivered. And you're welcome to join us for that. And I think that's it, right, Director? Oops. The what? Oh, I already acknowledged. Okay. Yes, so that's correct. So anyway, that is 1 o'clock. So it may be in the middle of something. We'll try and manage around it. All right, back. Let's see. Oh, good. We have enough time. Great. So the first final action item is our Lesser Prairie Chicken Stewardship Action Plan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mindy Godsagan. I'm the Stewardship and Ecosystem Services Program Manager, and I'm here today to present the 2026 Lesser Prairie Chicken Stewardship Action Plan for board action. Alan or Nick, I assume you're going to be moving the program forward?
Yep, just give us a gentle slide and we'll advance it for you. If you'd like to practice that now, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to talk right here for a minute. So a stewardship action plan is a board approved plan prepared by staff that addresses protection of a species or ecosystem across a landscape involving multiple or many state and board properties. The board has 3 stewardship action plans. This one for the Lesser Prairie Chicken was first developed by staff and approved by the board in 2020. And so we're here today to present an update to that plan. The board typically approves those for a period of 5 years. And because they contain leasing directives to the staff and stipulations, we require or we ask for board approval. This is not an action that's delegated to staff, so this is the board who has and like an action item. And it also contains updated information that we've learned from our learnings over the last 5 years. It also represents updated information on what we know about the species and past efforts to make improvements to state trustees. Go to the next slide, please. The stewardship action plan, our main goal here is to help save a species from extinction. The population numbers have dropped in the last 5 years for lesser prairie chickens. And toward that end, the state landlord was interested in seeing more of what we can do better to help protect and contribute to the efforts to help protect lesser prairie chicken in Colorado. Next slide. The area that we're talking about is this 5-county area in southeast Colorado, with Cheyenne, Kit Carson, Prowers, Kiowa, and Baca County. And next slide. First slide will show what the historic range of lesser prairie chicken habitat was across this area, the Southern Plains, the Southern Great Plains. The areas outlined in black is the current extent of where lesser prairie chicken occur today. The next slide shows so this is the current occupied range across these 5 states of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Colorado, and Mexico. There are 4 distinct kind of populations based on the types of habitat. And then the next click will show you that within this occupied range, there are strongholds of lesser prairie chicken habitat. So even within those broad colored areas, we don't have complete coverage of the occupation of lesser prairie chickens. In Colorado, this map shows this area of southeast Colorado with the state trust land, surface land shown in blue. The outlined areas in red show our mineral estate that does not have surface estate above it. And this shows the different types of lesser prairie chicken habitat with the core areas or bulba areas shown in orange, connected by the areas of yellow that are called connectivity zones that connect these 4 areas. The olive green color is the occupied range where we still do find lesser prairie chicken occurring. And then the red or pink dots are the currently active and historic lesser within the last 10 years. Within this area too, if you could make one more click, will show you that current efforts to really focus on protection of lesser prairie chicken habitat is happening within an area known as the Sand Sage Generation of Grassland. And this occupies the area of southern Kiowa County and Prowers County. And today we visited a lake in Prowers County within this area. So this is the core habitat area that we're looking at in our strongest efforts to help contribute to the effort to protect this species from extinction and working in collaboration with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and other efforts made to enhance and protect lesser prairie chicken habitat. Next slide, please. So briefly, I'm going to go over some of the statistics about our lease data in lesser prairie chicken habitat, and in some cases, how this has changed over the last 5 years. So we still have, has been no change in service ownership in lesser prairie chicken habitat. The state landlord currently owns just over 81,000 acres of surface acres. The next slide, the next click. We have 114 grazing leases, and that's the same as it was 5 years ago. The CRP leases, the Conservation Reserve Program, we actually have less than a third of what we had 5 years ago. So we had 20, now we currently only have 6. And that's due to changes in Farm Bill, other reasons. Next slide. This center column shows the change in renewable energy leases happening. We have 5 years ago, we had just under 3,000 acres of state trust land in renewable energy production leases. That's tripled to almost 8,000 acres under production and actively producing energy. I think all of that is wind energy. The replanting leases, meanwhile, that has dropped. Many of those former acres leased under planning leases have moved into production, and we currently have just under 5,000 acres of land in planning leases. In mineral acres, the state land board actually owns twice as much land as it does of surface acres. That's because in this area, 100 years or ago, the state land board actually sold quite a bit of its land in this area, its surface acres. But we currently have 170,000 of mineral estate. Next, please. And Of active oil and gas leases, we've had just a net increase of 5 leases over the last 5 years. The board has approved over 100 tracks for oil and gas leasing, alien leasing, and actually most of those did not lease or had, if they did lease, had were never drilled. So over those 5 years, we just have net increase of 5 leases. And then finally, active solid mineral leases, we have a net increase of 1 lease. So this is not an area where we have a tremendous amount of oil and gas leasing, more active solid mineral leasing. So I want to briefly just go through a quick overview of lesser prairie chicken habitat. I'm going to go through starting with what would be exceptional habitat. We learned this morning that lesser prairie chickens use a different variety of habitat throughout its life cycle, but generally it's looking to have the best type of habitat is where we have a mix of grasses and forests that are anywhere from 12 inches high to maybe 31 inches high, but it's shin high to mid-thigh high. So this is a picture of exceptional lesser prairie chicken habitat. This picture was taken in Colorado. Next picture. We'll move to kind of down the scale here with this is good quality habitat, has a mix of sand, sage, and grasses and forests. The area in the foreground is low. This picture was taken from along the roadside, so you're seeing kind of a lower grass level there, but this is still good quality lesser prairie chicken habitat. Next slide. Here's moderate quality, again, some grass cover, some taller grass and lower grasses, and kind of a healthy sand sage system, but getting into more moderate quality with less ability to provide cover for lesser prairie chickens. Getting into lower quality, this picture was taken during a drought. We're seeing some impacts for the sand sage and actually very low grasses here. And finally, very poor lesser prairie chicken habitat where you have just those very little of any sand sage and then just very, very low grasses. So providing low cover and low forage are resources for lesser prairie chickens. So what we have is a population decline over time. This picture starts, I think in the 1950s and came first date. But you can see that as it comes down to the right, and that's the actual dates. Starting around 2000 or before, we're really coming down into present day. And the next slide will show that we're going to look at a little subset of this next slide. This second graph shows just the population data for the last 10 or so years. And what you're seeing is these different populations that we looked at earlier. If you click through there, Alec or Dick, you can see these different states. But where the total line is at the top, what we're seeing is a kind of a rise. The population levels really respond dramatically or influenced by weather events or climatic events, either by drought or heavy snowstorms and blizzards. The line on the bottom, which is in red, is actually the population in Colorado. So you can see it's still it's one of the very lowest, but it's one of the ones that's beginning to come up. So the state land board, the staff feels that even contributing the state land board councils can really make a difference in the system of population in Colorado. Next slide. Other factors that have influenced the reduction of habitat has been the conversion of cropland over time. This has been happening for decades, but it's one of the contributors to reduction in habitat. Next slide. And as I mentioned, drought and extreme weather can have tremendous significant impacts on lesser prairie chicken population levels and survival. And then finally, lately, we're looking at tremendous impacts resulting from renewable energy development, both with the placement of large wind towers, which lesser prairie chicken naturally avoid, and the transmission lines that you see in the distance there that take that energy and transmit it to population centers. The next slide will show you just the scale of development that's happening in the northern range of the lesser prairie chicken in Colorado in Kit Carson and Chelan counties. These projects, because of the impacts of the wind towers, and lesser prairie chicken naturally avoiding them, we're seeing a reduction in population numbers in those areas. Next slide. This just shows you some of the transmission lines that are also going through this area. These all combine to create negative, significant impacts on the populations in the northern part of the range. Next slide. So with that, I want to kind of transition to what the Lesser Prairie Chicken Stewardship Action Plan is containing at this point. This will be a combination of existing goals that we're extending and a few new goals as well. Before I do that, I want to talk about the Lesser Prairie Chicken Habitat Assessment Tool. State Land Board staff developed this in conjunction with Colorado Parks and Wildlife just at the beginning of the end of 2020, and worked with Colorado Parks and Wildlife to assess lesser prairie chicken habitat on every state trust land parcel in lesser prairie chicken. If you click on the first one, this habitat assessment tool has 4 different components. The first one looks at spring habitat. Let's click this. So this is the habitat, what the habitat will look like in early spring and how each property measures up against that. The next one, the green area, shows early summer. In summer, the orange is showing fall and winter factors. And finally, the last one, pink, shows the man-made or anthropogenic effects. And staff evaluated the results of this. Next slide, please. These assessments are done in the early spring of 2021 by Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff. And I was going to say, at the same time that they were doing leg counts on every state trust land property to see whether there were legs, and if they were, how many there were, staff also collected these assessments. Results of those assessments are shown in the next page. What the study's founding across the board, averaged across or combining of the different state trust land properties and the different kinds of habitat area, where the first one shows that first ways that the area of the need for the greatest improvement was in the kind of lesser prairie chicken habitat that occurs in the spring. This is important because as in spring right now, as the breeding season concludes, the hens are looking for nesting habitat, and they need a certain level of nesting habitat in order to be successful in brood rearing. So what we found is across the board, our properties in generally didn't have enough cover to successfully support this season of the lesser prairie chicken's lives. The next slide shows that the highest scores were the anthropogenic effects. So what this found is on state trust land properties in general, we tended to have lower than average anthropogenic effects in terms of fencing or tower, transmission lines, roads that entered into this type of habitat. So that was good news one way for lesser prairie chicken habitat in state trust lands. The next slide shows that we have potential for increases in improvements to lesser prairie chicken habitat through grazing management, the first 3 types. And then finally, our leasing strategies or leasing stipulations can be controlled through to help improve the anthropogenic. So that's our overall strategy moving forward. And just coming back to the core areas, what we're looking at in terms of changes to the lesser prairie chicken stewardship action plan is to protect this core area. Is there another? Yeah, and to look again at that same sage generation of grass. We'll do that through a few goals. So for that, the continued goal is to continue to work with CPW. Next clip, please. Again, for all our projects that do occur here, we require lessees to meet early with Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff and to do consultation on how the project can be, how any impacts can be minimized or mitigated. Next clip. And to require compensatory mitigation for any permanent adverse impacts. that might occur in lesser prairie chicken habitat. So that's a continued goal. It's a carryover from the existing stewardship action plan. Next slide, an expanded goal is to have stronger development restrictions in more types of lesser prairie chicken habitat. Colorado Parks and Wildlife recommends through its high priority habitat regulations that certain stipulations be applied. And the state land board on going forward, staff will require that there'll be no new oil and gas, solid mineral or renewable energy leasing in the focal areas, connectivity zones, the sand stage generation of grassland, and within 2.2 miles of active flats. This is a stronger recommendation than what we had the last 5 years. Next slide. Planning leases that are already approved will be grandfathered in. And only those lease types allowed, and all of these lease types will still be allowed in the estimated occupied range, but with stipulations. Those stipulations, I think, are listed here. Next slide. And these are those 7 stipulations that are required. These are all existing currently, and they'll just be carried forward. But it basically has to do with seasonal planning limitations, surface density, how much development can happen within a certain section, noise limits, structures designed to limit purchase for raptors, reclamation of disturbed native groups. That is existing and that will carry forward. Next slide. This is a new goal. The state land board, we only did the habitat assessments once 5 years ago. Staff will now be moving forward to complete updated lesser prairie chicken habitat assessments on state trust land starting in 2026. We'll be starting them later this spring and in the summer. It'll be done by state land board staff across various seasons instead of just in one season. And we'll use other available tools, including the new lens program that the state land board has approved. Next slide. Another expanded goal is to improve and increase our engagement with our lessees. We had a public meeting that was just last week in this room. We've got some great comments back from our lessees. We will, with all of our grazing lessees that are in the priority areas, the sand stage generation of grassland, the focal areas and connectivity zones, we're meeting with those lessees and to better understand how they use the land and see if there's any opportunities for improvement in those areas. And finally, collaborate with them on habitat projects. Next slide. Again, work with them to improve lesser prairie chicken habitat. We're hoping our goal is to improve the habitat scores that we had 5 years ago by at least 10% across all state trust lands in general. Encourage the use of regenerative grazing and cropland practices program. And finally, encourage participation in the state land board's new grassland carbon program. All of that would involve regenerative grazing practices, which we think would result in improved outcomes on lesser prairie chicken habitat. Next slide. A continued goal is to continue to work on a species conservation bank. That was a project that we had started last year. We had a mitigation bank sponsored, and they pulled out after the species was delisted. And state land board staff is recommending that we'll continue to work on the species conservation bank with particular focus on 14 sections that are in that focus area called the sand sage generation place. Adaptive management. All stewardship action plans require that staff make an annual report to the board. We do that every year in October as part of our stewardship report that shows leasing activity, leases that have been approved with stipulations or withheld from leasing, assessment of state trust lands where the findings were, compensatory mitigation actions, if any, were taken, financial impact to the agency's revenue if we reduced leasing in any way, and any adaptive management recommendations. And then finally, staff recommendations that the board approve the 2026 lesser prairie chicken stewardship action plan for 3 to 5 years. We'll present our annual findings every year as part of the annual stewardship report. And the board again in 5 years will review the decision to enter to continue with cease efforts under the plan in 2030. Are there any questions? Staff.
Commissioners?
Next slide, question slide, and then there's the board.
I don't have questions, but I really appreciated the tour. It was amazing and I learned so much. 3 a.m. was painful, worth it.
Hmm.
It's quite a sad story is one of the takeaways, but we can do something and there's still time and we should. Is my strong feeling on this.
It looks like Commissioner Harvey has a comment or question.
Yeah, Mindy, thank you for that. That's really interesting, and I salute you for working on this. And I think, the ancillary goal or whatever is just to get these grasslands back to health. I mean, those slides were stark. The one with all the tall grass and the biodiversity versus the one that was overgrazed. And so, yes, we are trying to get the prairie chicken back to health, but it's, in my mind, it's kind of an indicator species of our lands themselves. So I think if that can be shared with our leaseholders, that it's not just this one bird, it's really the health of the grasslands.
I also just neglected to mention that Jonathan Wrights from CPW is in the audience and helped us today.
Yes.
And Jordan, he's also available for questions, but a tremendous thanks to and shout out to CPW for helping us with this.
Well, Jonathan was just so knowledgeable. I mean, I feel like I earned a certificate in lesser prairie chicken from his PhD.
Yeah, next time you can hand out certificates.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like there's no further questions from the commission. So at this point, I would like to open up to public comment in the room, preference for the folks in the room, and then we'll move to the online community. Okay, before we move to the commission discussion, Director, did you have anything to add?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right then, commissioners, you have any other follow-on thoughts about pursuing this plan and adopting this plan and the benefits of this plan?
Was there anyone online?
There was no
Okay.
comment online.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm prepared to offer a motion.
Okay.
I need to say first, it was almost a magical experience. To feel like you were there to see this amazing, that as the sun came up and this array of color and energy and excitement that you saw from the lesser prairie chickens. And I'm really proud we can be a part of not only preservation, but hopefully expansion. So therefore, I'm proud to offer this motion in support of the 2026 Lesser Prairie Chicken Stewardship Action Plan as
Thank you.
contained in our board packet.
In our board packet. Thank you, Commissioner Heath. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Commissioner Pribble.
Thank you.
And yes, maybe before we vote, I'll just offer that Mindy, again, kudos to you for a very thorough presentation and all the thought that's gone into this plan to distill the outcomes we're seeking and then the ways we're going to do it. I guess the one thing that struck me too was kind of echoing what Commissioner Harvey said. This is also about grasslands habitat, and my hope is as we explore and are committed to explore in this plan, support for agricultural lessees and incentives and looking at markets and looking at other ways that the state land board can help partner with people to improve grassland health, maintain grassland health, and also ideally improve the population of the birds. So those are some of the elements of the plan that I thought were particularly appropriate. And I need some help here. So do we have a public comment?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of people that want to make comment and weren't hearing very well.
Okay,
Talk about the internet on that. I think there's people that really try.
wonderful.
We
Wait,
gone past that portion.
I think we can
Yeah.
definitely make room for this now. So we have a motion in front of the commissioners that's been seconded for adopting the Prairie Chicken Plan. Would love to hear from,
This machine's a little loud. So it is
okay.
kind of hard to hear over.
anyway, I'd invite members of the public here who would like to make a comment on this item.
I'm not the only one, and I usually try to prepare written comments, but I'm gonna shoot from the hip a little bit here today. My name is RJ Jolly. I am a commissioner from Cheyenne County, Colorado, and I'm also a member of the board of directors for Colorado Counties Association. So I wear two hats, and my comments are mostly becoming, well, it'll come from both positions. I'll try and keep it short. I think we need to clearly define one of the comments is we need to clearly define what you mean by regenerative grazing. It's a term that's being used a lot now. That means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Revenue for schools and protecting the resource are the prime objective of the state land. So with this plan you're putting forth, you need to keep that in mind. In Cheyenne County, oil and gas, ag, and lately renewable energy are our main economic drivers in that county. And it would appear that renewable energy has taken the forefront, but there's been a project just recently canceled that was in some of the Western Prairie Chicken prime area. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't one of the reasons it was ended. Oil and gas has been beating their head against the wall and trying to get permits. One of the main drivers in Cheyenne County right now is helium production. As you know, we've got a helium plant in Cheyenne County. That's a big employer for the county, and it produces on a national scale a really massive amount of helium. The construction of the plant in Cutter just recently. That helium is very necessary. The only way we can get that capacity is through exploration. Unfortunately, a portion of the helium-rich deposits in Cheyenne County are also rich. And I think the state land board needs to be careful that you don't really stifle that source of revenue for you, the economic driver for Cheyenne County. As far as, and I know I'm not supposed to ask questions, but I was just wondering, is this whole plan geared towards that concern area in Kiowa, Byers County, or is this plan with a 2.2 mile buffer zone? Does that go over all this whole area in Colorado state? It's considered much of
Mindy, would you like to come
Yeah,
up?
sure, I can answer that. So if I understand your question correctly, is the limitation on the entire area. So oil and gas is still allowed the olive green area, the broader area outside of local areas. It can also occur bi-directional drilling as well, even if it were underneath the what areas it would happen bi-directional.
Everything that we're talking about has the potential to reduce economic drivers from Cheyenne. I know that something has to be done for chickens. It has to be balanced with starting with Cheyenne County. It's losing population, jobs are going. Has the potential to make. When I look at your numbers on prairie chickens, and I look at the pictures of graded habitat and really good habitat, there are some state leases that maybe have been abused over the years. There's private lands that so you need to have some context on which is on Now I'm putting my cattle in saddle. Our particular operation. In an intensive rotational grazing program for 30 years. And there's years when they come out, assessed our range. We've got excellent thumbs up on it. And they've come out, assessed our range after a drought or a hailstorm, and it looks like hell. And you have to have that context in these positions. I know you can have a leg that's doing really well, have a range that's doing well there, and you get one of these hailstorms that is common. Game open. We had one of those short before the 2021 assessment. It was a hailstorm that went from Cheyenne, Wyoming to Dalhart, Texas, about 30 miles wide. It devastated. Dead jackrabbits everywhere, dead birds everywhere, dead cattle, dead deer, dead animals. It was bad. And that happens. So when you do your surveys, you need to have some context in your surveys. And I would ask you to please consider economic impacts. Look at how people are living. Still got all. Oh, I did have one other point on the grazing management. You're trying to manage these particular lands for 10% take of 10 to 20% take of forage at this particular time, and then the next particular time up to 30 to 40% take of the forage to match the needs of the lesser prairie chicken at that particular moment. That can also be a hard one to manage, even under a perfect management scheme. There has to be a lot of flexibility. Otherwise, it will not be. And the third comment, last comment I'm going to make is most of the people out there are groups in resource management. But right now, our guy is scared to death of finding prairie chicken on his place. Those are the restrictions that we put on the use of that. It's not that they would love to see them because they're indicated with proper management. And they shouldn't want anybody to know they're out there because you don't know what's coming. So you have to be very careful about those things. That's I'll finish my comments very good.
Commissioner, I have a question. Hi, I'm Commissioner Ethan. I was formerly a county commissioner also, so thank you for coming today. You talked about redefining regenerative agriculture. Do you have an idea about what you think that definition should be?
I don't have a clear one. I'll admit to you that on our farming side of things, most of it's on the east side of things, some of it's on the western side of Canada, and our places right in the back, some of it's prairie chicken stuff. We're trying to attempt regenerative farming, reduce chemical inputs, cover crops, improve the soil, till soil health. Jury's still out on whether it's going to work or not, and the jury's still out on whether that's the definition you guys are looking at. As far as regenerative grazing, I would submit that we've been doing that for 30 years, and they've involved a rest rotation, intensive grazing cycle. Mimicking what the bison herds did over the centuries. It's worked really well on our place, but we've had some years where it's been a disaster. It doesn't rain or get those hailstorms. You're sitting there making decisions on destocking and how to do that. And even with destocking, the place will look like hell. It's just the way it is. And that's how this country evolved, and that's how the lesser prairie chicken evolved too. Because I've spent my whole life. I'm getting off the topic here, but that would be my discussion of regenerative. I will tell you that through that time period of the 80s when this country was fantastic, and I was younger then, a lot younger, I thought, man, this is an excellent country. I don't ever want to be anywhere else. My parents, my grandparents told me, don't get used to it. This is the way it always is, and damn, they were right. And they went through it in the thirties, the fifties, the teens. And that's what the Lesser Prairie Chicken has gone through. It's not gone through. They can come back from this. They will come back from this. That's just my comments. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Jolly, really appreciate you taking the time and coming here and sharing your thoughts with us.
No problem. I hope I didn't get off talking too much.
No, you were on topic. I have a question more out of curiosity, either for Assistant Director Hoyt or Mindy, or both. Just in the conversations you had, I guess last week or so, was there much conversation about regenerative practices? I feel like we're pretty flexible on every context is different, every rancher is different. So maybe you could speak a little bit to our approach there.
We heard similar comments in terms of, please meet with us as you go out and do updated assessments. There was definitely a call and a request for updated assessments. This was one picture in time 5 years ago. And so there was a request to make these, one, to update the assessments, secondly, to put them across the season, but also to always have that context and to involve and engage each of our lessees in meeting with them to understand that. So obviously, even if someone is using, I'll just say, the best recommended practices, and certainly the practices that Mr. Jolly, I think, was describing, you don't know if they haven't been out there for a year and they're just about to start grazing, or if they just finished. And so you always need to have that understanding of what you're looking at and having that context. So we didn't talk at length about regenerative grazing or these different practices and what might be available to some people if they're able to accommodate that within their operation or not. That is something that, because we have our new regenerative grazing manager, he's available to do that as well.
That's what I was going to say. I'll be the assistant director. We did have a brief conversation about regenerative grazing, and same questions about how you define it. There's a lot of room, but the fact that we have a regenerative grazing program and we have staff that follows that, and offered to have staff come meet with lessees, walk the property, and talk about practices, what's happening. So exactly what Mindy was saying in terms of understanding the context and looking at how the property is being managed.
Thank you very much. Did you have a comment? Yes, gentlemen. And then we have someone online as well. Oh,
my apologies. I probably haven't heard half of the words that have been said today. It's very difficult here in the back room. So my apologies if I repeat or contradict something that has been stated. My name is Dallas May. I'm a rancher here in southeastern Colorado. I'm also the Colorado representative for the Lesser Prairie Chicken Landowners Alliance. We've been working on this issue for years, a group of landowners from all the Lesser Prairie Chicken states. So I appreciate the efforts that have been made. One thing I will say, as far as grazing is considered, our ranch is a pristine ranch. It's native grass. It would not exist today if it wasn't for cattle production, for beef production of cattle raising. It would have been plowed up 100 years ago to go on the cropland. People have to have the means to support their families, to pay their mortgages. So there are some places such as our ranch that are preserved because of cattle. So the importance of grazing, I can't overstate. On our ranch, we have had over the past 40 years, 4 exclosures of 80 to 160 acres that we excluded the cattle from entry. Did it for the purpose of preservation of wildlife and habitat. We had a fire 4 years ago that destroyed all of our fences. Those exclosures that did not have cattle grazing on them are the last to recover. They had no biodiversity of seeds, seed banks. They had developed into a monoculture of single species of plants. So I just want to make that point quickly, that cattle grazing is an important part of grasslands health. It's either grazing or fire or light tillage, such as happens in CRP lands. But grasslands need a disturbance, and those are provided. That being said, it has to be responsible and intelligent. It can't be overgrazed as some of the pictures have shown. I think you'll find out that private landowners and ranchers in Colorado are the ones that have preserved these habitats. One of the lakes in Colorado, I don't know which one we went to today, but one of the lakes in Colorado that's historical is 1 mile from where my grandparents homesteaded. And that has been in private ownership for all of these years. That lake exists today because of private owners and their stewardship of the land. So I simply want to make those points of the importance of the private landowner's contribution to that. But one most important thing I would like to say, and it's not part of this plan, part is in the way, but mitigation, compensatory mitigation for development in these habitats and description of the habitat, in my opinion, has to be done in Colorado. In the past 2 years, there has been one transmission line that went through Lesser Prairie chicken habitat. All of the compensatory mitigation left Colorado and went to Kansas. It went to protect ranches in Kansas. The damage was done in Colorado. The protection has got to be done in Colorado. So I would ask you to please keep that part of your process. A conservation banking program is what we need, but it needs to be directed to in-state boundaries. Whenever this damage is done within state, the adjoining landowners that are not providing the habitat that was lost need to be helped to be able to continue to provide that. And part of that is if you need to reduce your cabin inventory to provide better habitat, there's a cost to that. So I just want everybody to recognize, let's keep the mitigation, the compensatory mitigation in Colorado. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate the work all of you do. I know you're volunteers and I know it's a big job. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks for being.
Appreciate your comments and insights too. Thank you very much, Mr. May. And should we have someone back here?
Please. Thank you all. You've heard from me many times in the past few meetings.
Well, would you introduce yourself again for the record? Thank you.
Tony House, Los Angeles County Commissioner, also president of Colorado Counties Authority. And honored to be here in my southern district and speaking on their behalf. Having lived here, I understand the process that's going on here. Now living in Los Angeles County, to touch on what Mr. Mays had talked about how critical it is that grazing happens on those short prairie grass. Many of you are familiar with strawberries and strawberries in your garden and shoot runners. And those runners you know how much of that's going to be the prairie chicken habitat. Do you know how much is going to be affected by the transmission that NEITC is thinking about putting in?
I don't know. Is there anyone on staff who had, you want to, okay.
Commissioner Haas, we'd be happy to talk with you on a break. But if you could just finish your public comments, because I think we have people waiting in line.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
That's pretty much all I wanted to touch on, was how important the grazing is to that land. We know there are people out there that, and one thing I wanted to mention is one size doesn't fit all. And I hope that you'll come out and talk to those individuals, because every rancher is different and unique in his own way. And most of us use the old savory system that was, pushed on us in the 70s. And that is to rotational graze. If you take care of it, it takes care of you. Thank you.
And thank you for your comments.
Yes.
Good to see you again.
You too.
And I believe we have a comment online and I can't see who it is, so,
Yeah,
Alex?
Ashley House, you're being promoted as panelist. You're now able to address the board.
Hi, this is Ashley House. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to make comments today. My name is Ashley House. I am the Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy with the Colorado Farm Bureau. And I just want to start out with the concession and commending you all and the collaboration between the State Land Board and CPW. It's clear the science is there, so I certainly appreciate the presentation and the scientific data that was provided with regard to the stewardship plan. I'd like to echo a lot of the comments made by former Commissioner May and the county commissioner from Cheyenne County, just to say that how important these partnerships are between the State Land Board and our members or private landowners. I don't think that can be understated. Certainly maintaining that trust is imperative going forward for species recovery and species success. So I think that, I just wanted to underscore perhaps the nature or some notes about the farm economy and the state of the farm economy and the pressures being experienced by farmers and ranchers, especially in Southeast Colorado. We have historic drought right now, rising input costs. And so opportunity cost, as Mr. May alluded to, is really important. So I know there's a balance to be struck here, and I certainly commend and know that's the intention of the State Land Board here. But again, diversified income streams and opportunities for income streams are really important. So just the stronger development restrictions and, outright no new oil and gas and renewable energy in the focal zones and the sand sage grass area. We have reservations that strikes the appropriate balance from the Farm Bureau perspective. So I just wanted to offer that. I certainly agree that there's a solution here, but I would just urge you all to consider, the nature of the farm economy right now, the pressures on farmers and ranchers, especially in this state, and perhaps if there's a more appropriate avenue for diversified income streams, which help rural economies, that's been stated here today. But I just wanted to offer that from our membership's perspective as we represent all areas of the state and all commodities and everything grown here in Colorado. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
And thank you very much for your comments and again, highlighting how important and critical our strategic partnerships are, both with organizations like yours and also at the individual ranch and farm operation level. We really try hard to meet and engage with operators where they are. With that said, I don't believe there's any more online comment, is there? Great. So to take us back to where we were, and appreciate all the comment. We enjoy getting out in the field so we can get that comment and those insights. I think I would like to remind the commissioners, we have a motion on the table and a second to adopt the board order that was contained in our packet that essentially adopts the Lesser Prairie Chicken Stewardship Action Plan. Is there any question before we move right to a vote?
I would just like to reemphasize the point that I believe Commissioner May made about mitigation in Colorado.
Yes.
And that it ought to be a priority for us. And I feel like that was
I agree.
an important contribution that we want to acknowledge. It's not that all the contributions weren't important, but that was a point.
And I want to echo some of the comments of our guests that we work in collaboration best it works best with our lessees. And we have some phenomenal lessees who are already practicing this work with us. And this plan didn't happen in a void. It was with a lot of consultation with our lessees. And I really appreciate the outreach, Mindy, in particular, you have done in getting their input into this. And it won't work without that collaboration and partnership. So I just want to acknowledge all the input. We have heard a lot of your feedback, and that's why we'll review this every year. It'll come back in 5 years, but we're putting into action our best thinking right now. But we're hearing you. I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
And I believe Director Rosemarino has a,
Madam Chair?
well, hold on, Commissioner Pribble. Oh, okay. And now we're going to go to you. Thank you.
Well, I just want to reinforce and echo the comments of Commissioner Heath and Commissioner Scanlon. I don't need to repeat them. And then secondly, I want to thank the staff and the whole team that worked on this in collaboration with the entire community in Southeast Colorado. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Now, Director.
Thank you, Chair. I really wanted to underscore that I think what comes through really clearly in the plan is that what our first steps are on grazing is to reach out to our lessees continually to look at, how they run the operation, how the state land factors in their operation. So if that point was lost, I just want to really lift that up, that the whole purpose is to have communications and offer incentives from various programs that are in place, various programs we might put in place to actually make it more financially attractive to engage with the State Land Board on trying to conserve this bird. In terms of the concerns about impacts on oil and gas and renewables, I just want to echo something that was in Mindy's presentation is that's actually where we're doing well by the chicken on state lands with a low degree of those types of anthropogenic threats to the species. So I think it's important that this plan outlined how we're going to continue to do well in that regard. And the other part of the equation is that partnership with ranchers on grazing management in ways that I think can benefit grazing operations and benefit the chicken. The final thing I just want to underscore is I think the current count is 86 breeding males in the state of Colorado. And I don't think anybody should feel okay about that number. And so I think we can all come together and decide whether or not we're going to let this species disappear from our state on our watch. And I think there are a lot of good reasons why the State Land Board should say we're going to be part of the solution. And one of them is actually economic revenue. One of the 12 lines of business that we have that has tremendous opportunity to grow is what Mindy manages, which is our ecosystem services line of business. We have examples where this has delivered 6 figures and has the potential for 7 figures or more in terms of our economic diversification at the State Land Board. You're right, 82% of our revenue comes from oil and gas. That's not in our beneficiaries' best interest. That's not a long-term solution. That leaves us vulnerable to the price for gas. So I just want to underscore how economic diversification and benefiting the ecosystem through these types of actions really can come together. And that's all.
Well said. Thank you. All right, commissioners, we're ready for a vote. Commissioner Scanlon, I'm going to start with you.
Aye.
Commissioner Heath.
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey.
Aye.
Commissioner Pribble.
Aye.
And the chair votes yes, so motion carries 5-0. Thank you all for your insights, the robust conversation and a commitment to follow up. Thank you.
And I think we want to reiterate, we're inviting our guests for
Yes.
lunch.
Right, if you didn't hear me the first time, and I think lunch is either delivered or about to be delivered, so we're going to call for a quick break in the recorded meeting. And we'll reconvene. What do you think, Director? 20 minutes? 20 minutes. 20 minutes.
I really have to leave at 2:30, just to let people know.
All right. How are we doing? I don't know what time it is because my watch stops. 14. So we have an hour. Why don't we have a 5-minute visit with everybody? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Cool.
Yeah, I don't mind a working lunch, but
Yeah, 10 minutes and a working lunch, right?
Fortunately.
That's the card that's been presented.
Meeting temporarily adjourned.
There's
Okay,
another
thank
card
you.
going.
Reconvening our meeting, have a few more final action items and we'll be working through lunch, so apologies for that in advance. All right, let's move to subject at hand.
Excellent. Thank you.
Got that clearly.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Mal Hoffman, real estate program manager. And pleased to be bringing the Gunnison Western Cooperative Agreement to you for your approval today. And that take place. I'm excited to have this in front of the board today because it's truly an opportunity to add value to a trust asset in a way that aligns well with others. And I'll kind of talk through some of those aspects, but by the end of this presentation, see the benefits to the trust. Again, and there's really a nexus that happens to exist here, and like so many other communities in Colorado, it's around houses ultimately. But it involves state trust land and there's an alignment of interests with different directives here. The land that I'm talking about today is a part of the northeast border of original section 36, 50 north, 1 west of the New Mexico meridian. You'll see it up here on the map. This is a little bit of an older city boundary of Gunnison, but you can see the most of the northeast quarter of that section 36 features very prominently within the city, close to the main street, the developed area, and is in fact a part of the Western Moron University campus. I mentioned a couple more annexations since this map. Nick, do you get for the next slide, please? This is the city of Gunnison's street map, but you can see the boundary a little bit better. Up on the northwest, you can see the Van Tor Ranch annexation, which is a large city limit, and then to the east, and if you please put your cursor just right on the kind of dead center. Sure. Up a tiny bit. Yeah, that is the state trust land right there. So you'll see that there's now annexation to the east and to the southeast, and that is the Gunnison Rising annexation, which was about 600 acres. There was a plan for approximately 1,700 units to be developed there, about 1 million square feet of commercial. That development ultimately failed, and that land is being going through the auction process. But it relates to kind of the situation at hand today, contextually. So I wanted to point that out. Okay, go ahead and thank you, Nick. Now here's a close-up of that of the state trust land. Point out a few items. One is you see that there is development up to fairly dense development up to the western boundary. You'll see that there's less dense, but residential development kind of north. And then south of here and off the map is kind of the remainder of the western campus system. And then immediately east of here, you see the Gunnison Rising annexation. Go back. This property is in school trust, but it does not generate any recurring revenue for the trust today. And that's because of decisions that were made well before this board. You'll see 3 rights of way on this property. I'll go through them kind of in chronological order. There's a 20-acre right of way that is over the area that has the stadium and field. That was issued by the board in 1947 for those purposes. In 1951, a larger 120-acre right-of-way, which is bounded in orange, was granted by the board to Western for their school purposes. And you can see that some of the campus has been developed into that, but a large amount of it is not been developed. That also is held by use and was granted in exchange for a single one-time payment by the board, I believe in the amount of $3,800. It's not a model that we use today, where we use fixed term rights of way to ensure that the board's mission of reasonable consistent income is met over long expanses. Back in 2021, 2022 timeframe, Western was exploring developing residential units on the northwest portion of this property. And there's kind of two means of access. There's the cul-de-sac about halfway up the western boundary, and then there's another street that runs in north of there. That, based on their planning, looked like it could support up to about 240 units of housing. The plan that they were exploring was not university-specific housing. And as they went through that process, it became clear that State Land Board was the title owner of the property, and that we held any use development rights associated with the property. Of course, subject to the right-of-way that I discussed here. There's a third right-of-way on this property that's very important to understand, and that is the linear right-of-way that you see running kind of from the center of the southern boundary up into the northwest corner. That was issued in 2022 by the State Land Board to the city of Gunnison for the installation of underground buried electrical transmission lines in conduit. And that's a large infrastructure project that will support not only Western to the south, but also that entire Gunnison rising development that I pointed out earlier in the south. Which, while that has run into complications, ultimately the infrastructure will support whatever is developed. Sticking on the slide, please. As you see, the right-of-way that we granted for the transmission feeder line runs more or less diagonal. But in the middle of the section, or the quarter section, juts to the west and runs kind of over the boundary, and that feature, that configuration, was the product of a very deliberate planning process between the State Land Board and City of Gunnison and the developer at the time to preserve the remainder parcel. So while we try with rights of way to place them along property boundaries or along existing right-of-way corridors, this was very deliberate and to that end, to protect and preserve the value of the trust list. Well, as we fast forward a couple of years from when we issued this right-of-way, which is held by City of Gunnison, they have the rights to construct their infrastructure along that designated corridor today. They came back to us and said, we are bearing the total cost of this at this time. Developers essentially cut their contributions out of the equation. And their planning and value engineering concluded that there would be a very significant cost savings to the infrastructure installation that they would benefit from if we were to allow it to be realigned to go kind of point to point and not along that west and then north shut out. Also a part of those conversations and coincidentally at the table was Western Colorado University. Their interest lying in the development of that infrastructure. Incidentally, there's they have a plan to locate several modular housing units on their property that will, this fall that require this kind of investment. Okay, so with us all at the table, we were able to kind of go through the property, not only the right of way location and how it was designed and whether or not there is a potential for realigning that, but also what some of the stakeholder objectives and interests were in this situation. Us coming from the perspective of we own very valuable state trust land here that is heavily encumbered by these rights of way that do not provide any. Both Western and Gunnison are heavily interested in there being some level of residential development in that northwest corner. And so we talked about, is there a way that we might be able to solve that? The product of that is this staff MOU that we have as links into the board materials, which will be hopefully pending your approval and then the subsequent approval by Gunnison, City of Gunnison, will become an actual agreement, contractual agreement that will put in effect this concept. Go to the next slide, please. Here's a quick matrix that I want to talk through that kind of summarize who's bringing what and who's getting what from this deal framework. So leftmost column, the parties involved, that's Western and Gunnison, and then columns going over right what we contribute and or what is contributed or granted and what is received or what benefits progress from that. So under this concept, the State Land Board was free to the realignment approval as requested by the City of Gunnison. And in exchange, we would receive a lease option on a portion of that 1951 blanket right of way on the plain. Only for a small portion, but in a critical location that will support the future development under the State Land Board older things. Presumably through a lease arrangement. Western would provide the release option on that subject acreage, and in exchange receive certain lease rights for any of these units that were developed on the property we'll dive into shortly. And then Gunnison has a little bit more of a tangential role, but they've committed in spirit to their municipal support, or they will be, I should say, because they're employee meetings of this month. And in exchange, they benefit from the request. Go ahead, Nick, please. Okay, so what does that look like on the property? Here's an area that you see shaded in the northwest. There's approximately 12 acres. This is a selection area that we would have a right over the next 3 years following the execution of the agreement to really study and determine what precise acreage are we interested in having removed from the blanket road. So we don't know that at this point. Recognize that we're pretty early in the process. And I should note that there's a time of the essence situation here in that the City of Gunnison is currently constructing their infrastructure along the granted right of way. So they're out there working towards kind of this middle piece, which is going to be a window of opportunity for us to see if we can put this together. That is a 12-acre selection area. We'd have a bigger period under which we could formally exercise the option and move up to 90. This is broadly follows the planning that Western had done previously through what they call their City Ranch development. So, and then also depicted on this map, you'd see the real line as approximately aligned right away through the City of Gunnison. Next slide, please. In the event that, sorry, go back one. In the event that no affirmative selection was made by the State Land Board in that 3-year period, there would be a default removal parcel, which is this 9-acre parcel. So that's the general concept. I said that I would talk a little bit more about this master lease rights with Western, which I haven't done, so let me do that. Any leasable units developed on the property, Western would have a right of first refusal to lease up to 25% of that total stock at a slightly reduced rate, at 90% of the fair market rental value for the first 20 years of the existence of that inventory. Then, so long as the larger right of way existed, it would have that right going forward, but at the full fair market rental value. Those were both, that was a request that came out of their board meeting when they reviewed this concept. It was, they were going to give up some level of our own development rights potentially associated with this property. We would like some sort of preferential rate in exchange. They had one second request, which we've incorporated into the MOU that's to the materials, which was that there be some sort of finite window on this to see if we're going to go out there and put out a ground lease RFP and see if we can get a development started. That there's some fire behind that to ensure that it doesn't ultimately languish. And so what we've agreed to is a 5-year window following our selection of the acreage. So up to, say, theoretically up to 8 years. Okay, that's the general deal framework. If there are any questions about what was the MOU, I'm happy to address those. But I wanted to quickly hit on what I think are the 3 main points for the SLB rationale here and why I think this is a good idea for our board. The first is it's a pathway to trust revenue on a property that is in our inventory but does not currently meet our mission. The second, albeit small in terms of acre percentage, is this would partially remove a long-term encumbrance for the trust in them. And that's a long-term encumbrance that we would not otherwise issue to do. So while small in acreage, 9 of 120, big in terms of the development, it's really the most developable part of this stuff. And third, just with the timing, there's a window, truly a window of opportunity. Everyone is able to come to the table and say, this works. We think at the staff level, it's great to boards, get their endorsement and buy-in and make any necessary things. But it's really progressed quickly because of this timing issue with right of way that's coming into. So now that's a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions or go back over any math or aspects of this.
Commissioners, any questions?
And, Commissioner Heath, did the board actually sign the agreement in March?
Our board?
No, Western.
They did not. What they did was they dealt the MOU is a staff MOU at this point. It's non-binding, but it's set up to be signed by staff subject to the various. They received
at the Y that I go to.
those two. Well, I wouldn't be able to. They're more that they wanted this finite window and that they wanted some level of reduced rate leasing and delegated to their staff the ability to go forward and sign the MOU. Those 2 items. What you'll see in the board packet is the staff MOU is signed by us, by myself, in a staff only capacity, subject to our board approval, and by Western's CFO. And it's not yet signed by City of Denison. That's just because their staff, while they've reviewed and at the staff level concur with the MOU, they didn't feel that they had the authority to sign the staff level this time. So they're deferring that signature until the 14th when it's presented by the Public Works in the city, ultimately the city engineer to their council. After all of those are secured, we would circulate the actual.
I don't see any other hands from the other commissioners.
Pribble.
Commissioner Pribble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of comments. And I recognize we don't have a motion on the floor. I don't think I heard Matt mention, by the way, the right-of-way is to support electrical conduit service to the eastern edge of the Western campus. Not only the proposed residential and commercial development known as Gunnison Rising, but also a 36-unit faculty housing project that is under construction as we speak. This increased electrical service capacity is necessary for the university to serve that housing facility designed for faculty and staff. I should preface this by saying some of you may know I'm still on the board of Western Colorado University in my 8th year and served for 3 years as chair, and I'm a strong advocate of Western Colorado University. So I think it's a very good outcome that staff is proposing here. And once there's a proper motion, I also intend to tell you that I will recuse myself from the vote, not because I perceive any financial conflict of interest. Obviously, we don't get paid as trustees of Western Colorado University, nor do we have any financial interest in the university, just as the land board commissioners do not get paid nor have any personal financial gain to be made from our decisions. But since I've served as an advocate for Western in this process, I think it's appropriate that I'll recuse on the vote itself. So, but I do encourage the board to embrace this concept.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Pribble. Any other clarifying questions before we go to public comment? Do we have any members of the public here or online who would wish to make a statement or about this final action item?
Folks online, if you'd like to use the raise hand function on Zoom, we will be able to move you over as a panelist. Not seeing any hands.
Great, thank you very much. Well then, shall we move to a motion? Would someone like to make a motion?
I can do so. After consideration of the materials presented at our meeting today, April 9th, 2026, the board determines it's in the interest of the trust to delegate to staff the authority to finalize negotiation of terms for the partial release of right-of-way number 103272 and realignment of right-of-way 114785 in material agreement with the MOU circulated among the staffs of the board, the city of Gunnison, and Western Colorado University. The board delegates authority to the director to take appropriate action consistent with the board's authority, with the board's decision.
Thank you for that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Before we take a vote, I'd like to weigh in myself, and this feels like a wonderful opportunity that's come our way that you have, gracefully negotiated and gotten in front of us. And I feel like your rationale for saying yes today is very strong, and I'm appreciative. And who knows what this kind of recent set of contacts might lead to in the future. So I would like to ask for a vote. Commissioner Scanlon?
Aye.
Commissioner Heath?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
Commissioner Pribble, you're recused. Thank you. And the chair votes yes, so the motion carries 4-0. Appreciate your work on this, Matt.
Thank you all.
Yeah. They all should appreciate your work on this. There's quite a number of parties involved.
Yeah. All right, Director Hoyt, or Assistant Director Hoyt, Dowd Junction.
Good afternoon. I'll read this presentation. Elliot Hoyt, Assistant Director of Sustainability and Working Lands. Here to present a final action item regarding our property here. I know the topic is familiar to all of you. One, because we had an executive session discussion on this, and also because I've been in front of the board multiple times over the last couple of years to discuss it. So excited to share progress we've made to date and an opportunity to work together with our partners in the community to further the goals that we have for this property. Go to the next slide. So just to reiterate the goals that we've been working on here. It's very simple. It's delivering community housing in Eagle County, which is very much needed. It's continuing to be more intensely so over the years we've been working on this. But we actually, staff has been engaged in looking for opportunities on this property since 2011. So it's been a while. It's taken some twists and turns and required lots of support from stakeholders far and wide. If you go to the next slide. Just a reminder for everyone, the blue in the center, if you could do one more click, we'll do a circle around our section 16, an original school section in Eagle County that is very well located in that it's spans I-70, spans the Eagle River, is in between Avon and Minturn and Vale within each of their planning areas. And we've been working with a coalition of stakeholders, including Eagle County, Eagleville Metro District, all the folks on that screen. Next slide. So the State Land Board staff has been working with a team of consultants from about 2016 on a master plan for this area. And this represents the status of the work on the overall master plan. We worked closely with Avon, and we have a representative in the room, the town manager from Avon, who's very much a participant in this process on this master plan. And you'll see, for instance, that there's zoning categories on this plan that represent community housing. That was done together in partnership with Avon. Avon has been working obviously very hard on their community planning, community housing plans. And so we incorporated some of those new zoning districts into this master plan. So you can see how this represents lots of coordinated effort. This master plan can be talked about including in the 3 mile plan. I think folks who know about municipal planning efforts understand that every municipality in Colorado creates a 3 mile plan for all the land that has the potential to be annexed into that town and to plan for what the uses are that would be appropriate from the town's perspective for that. So this the work that's been done here has the opportunity to be codified and continued on because the build out of this area would be a very long process. So also would like to show the next plan. This what I'm doing here is I've got a couple of outlines on it, maybe a little bit tough to see, but I believe you can make out their blue outlines to the south of in between Highway 6 and I-70, and also to the left there where Nick was circling. Those are the areas where we have the commercial development which produces good solid revenue for us. I think you've had reports on that in the past. In the center, there's an area that's outlined in orange. That's an area that is under a right of way with CDOT and dates back to the same kind of time frame that Pat was just talking about with Gunnison and Western. And then to the right of that, where the red is what we call the apartment site, and that's an area that was under a right of way and was released, so that development could occur there. So, and then there's the river corridor, and then the area to the north of the sort of gray swath to the north of the river is a railroad right of way, which we have land ownership for, but it has a railroad right of way. Then everything north of that is what we call river. If you do a click, no, okay. So then let me talk for a minute to this plan, which represents what we were working on over the last year, which was an effort to move forward with the apartment site for the loan under a ground lease and to just annex that in. So in your board packet, we make reference to what we call the annexation parcel. And that's because this is a piece that has the most degree of survey and planning to it. And so I'll pick it up here because that's the point where we got to with the defining the acreage for what the apartment site was, park area. If you like, what's this thing? Let's see. Sorry, go back one. So the tracts A and B, which is the red area, and the green that's immediately around it is the apartment parcel. And currently that is being used as a staging area for an affordable housing project in Hale. And then also I wanted to just to make note to the board that we also have an agreement the county for the last couple of years to for their open space group to allow access to the Eagle River in that area. And community has been very supportive of being able to do that water the river there. So we've been putting it to use, but the question is how do we move from it? So if you click to the next one. We have a letter of intent, which is included in the board packet from the town of Avon, where they made an offer to purchase a portion of the land. The portion that they would like to purchase is the apartment site, the river corridor, and all of the land to the north. So and we reviewed some of this information together with appraisals in executive session because those were matters that were subject to executive session. But the matter before the board now is twofold. There's a determination of value that needs to be made. There's an identification of the land area to be disposed. Staff is recommending that the transfer of this property be through a directed exchange, which is allowed by specific statute, statute 36-124.3. Because that process, which is the transfer of property directly to a municipality or county or another government entity, it's a directed transfer that is not competitive. It is not put out for public bid. And because it's not competitive, statute requires that the board dispose of the property, or the statute requires that the board determine a value, a fair market value, that is consistent with an independent appraisal conforming to the uniform standard of professional appraisal practice standards. And so one of the tasks is for the board to determine the value. And then the second is to determine the area. So we all understand that the immediate ability to build community housing here is the apartment site. That has access to roadways, it has utilities, it's ready to go. There is also the land to the north of the river. And in the materials that you have from the town of Avon, they have included that in their offer to purchase. And they also included from the town manager included a memo to you outlining all of the reasons that the north area is something that they would like to secure now. And so we need to consider that. The staff, just to raise it for the board, has a concern in thinking about the fiduciary responsibility of the board, that there is potential future value of the land to the north of the river at some point when there's no access now. It's only open space that's isolated. But this board role is to steward the long-term value of land. And so you've had this property and managed it for 150 years. Its value over time is something that the board considers often about when is the right time to dispose of property. So there is a potential risk that by disposing of it now at the fair market value today, that you're precluding potential value in the future. And so we've had discussions with Avon staff about ways in which the board could protect its interest in the possibility of some future increase in value that is significant that the board would have missed out on by selling now. We believe that it's possible that if the board directed us to do so, that we could negotiate terms that would protect the interests of the beneficiaries in the transaction as well. But certainly the board has the opportunity to determine which portion of the property they would like to direct staff to proceed with. So with that, the recommendation is the next slide. The recommendation is the board to direct the staff to negotiate the direct exchange of land with the town of Avon with the value determined by the board. And that the board recommends that, the staff recommends that the board consider the entire area that Avon has requested. And Avon has indicated that they are not indicating that in a sale. So we're taking that into consideration. And that the board directs us to negotiate terms that reflect that ultimate interest of the beneficiaries. So with that, open it up for any questions from me, and I believe that we will have comments from Town of Avon representative and potentially other stakeholders as part of the public process. But at this point, if there are any clarification or anything that the board would like from me, I'm open for questions.
Fellow commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions for Director Hoyt? Right, you wore us out earlier. And let's see if the public has anything to say. Pardon me? Oh, I didn't know if you were going, you had prepared remarks. I'm sorry. We're glad you're here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the State Land Board. Thank you very much for having this on the agenda. Enjoying working on this partnership for quite a while. Over a couple of executive directors and liaisons. And what we find is these community housing projects are all very complicated. And it's been a learning process.
Sorry, Eric, could you identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Eric Heil, Town Manager for the, great, thank you. And we've been learning about the State Land Board process, which I'm very involved over. We've been talking about the your process for dealing with state transactions. And I think we looked at one way of approaching this with annexation, another way of buying, and then went back to annexation, went back to buying. So we're trying to find the right way that works for everyone. I will say, I think I have explained the fiduciary view of the State Land Board probably more than you have in Eagle County with all of our meetings, because I get a lot of comments of, well, why don't they just give it to us? And that's really not the way it works. I give you a lot of information to explain some of our strategic planning. I know that's not your first priority when you look at land dispositions. And I also gave you a long outline of the next steps it will take. And that was more to show our commitment to community housing. You know, this isn't speculative for us. This is something that is well thought out in partnership with the county and Town of Vale. So I want to be available just to answer any questions if you have them. I think there's maybe some representatives from Eagle County and the Town of Vale that might want to say anything, but again, I'll say that I appreciate that you got this on the agenda, and we look forward to continuing.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for making
any questions,
and appreciate the letter that you sent to us, kind of laying out some points for consideration as well.
And that said, having certainly a perspective from the town of Avon, how important it is to think maybe we should just give it to you. We have this fiduciary responsibility to a trust that says that fair market value is an important part of this transaction, even now and in the future, should there be additional opportunities to develop that north side. So just want to let you know, staff has gotten that direction as well.
Well, you've become well versed in the State Land Board. You know all of our issues. I appreciate that.
The federal government land exchanges might still be the most complicated.
All right, I don't see any other commissioner questions. Director, do you have questions?
I just want
Online.
to check.
Oh, there is one left.
Folks listening along online, if you'd like to use the raise hand function on Zoom to make a public comment on this agenda item, please do so now. We'll move you to a panelist. I see our first comment will be coming from Tom Boyd.
That's right, started.
And Mr. Boyd, as long as you're moved over as a panelist, you're able to address the board.
Thanks so much. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't want to cut off. If folks have more questions for Town Manager Eric Heil, please do so. My name is Tom Boyd. I'm an Eagle County Commissioner, and today I'm speaking on behalf of the Eagle County government as well as the Eagle County Housing and Development Authority. And I just want to first say thank you so much to the State Land Board for all the work that you do. and for taking this under consideration and having this on your agenda today. We're very engaged with this process, and we are very ready to partner with the town of Avon and with the town of Vale to move this project forward and work together. We think this is a primo place for affordable housing and for housing for our community, for the vitality of our community. And we're really grateful to Eric Heil and the town of Avon for all the great work that they've done as well. We have a proven track record of partnering on these issues. We really have worked hard over many, many years, if not decades, to form alliances between local governments and our community and nonprofits, and utilize every tool that we can to make sure that the people that work here and live here can love living here and can afford living here. So we appreciate all that you do, and we understand where your position is, and we're grateful that you're taking this under consideration today. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us, Commissioner Boyd. Is there anyone else?
Yeah, any additional comments coming from online, please use the raise hand function now, and we'll be able to move you over if I don't see any hands raised. Commissioner Grove, I'm not seeing any additional hands.
Thank you. Well, I have a hand. I have a question for you. Thinking about this parcel and the town of Avon's sort of long-term vision for how it's built out and where it could go and the potential it offers. And there are many things that can kill various deals, especially for complicated affordable housing deals. But as you envision this development of this over the next, say, 15, 20 years, what are the key factors that are the highest risk you perceive in executing on that vision? Like, what about all these pieces, physical or financial or legal or whatever? What are the ones that pose the biggest challenges?
The highest risk is we keep getting snow years like we have.
Well, there's that.
Won't be any change.
Right.
And that's not extreme to say. I mean, if you've been watching the drought maps, I thought severe was the worst, and they've got a new category for that centered on Eagle County and Summit and Fountain County. And I think our snowfall was barely half of the average of the 3 worst years on record. And so that had a really big impact. That's by far, I mean, I hope it's an anomaly. We all hope it's an anomaly, but there's going to be a short life to ski resorts if that continues, and it's not going to be positive. Wildfire, I think, is, we're all acutely aware, and this is going to be the summer of the go bag, and that's not going to help the economy at all either. Specifically to development, I think the apartment site, as Elliot said, it has utilities to it, so it's accessible from the highway, so that's ready to go. One of the reasons, as I elaborated on the north side, is that we have a large landowner in Avon that stretches all the way from City Market all the way up to this property called Traer Creek. We've been working with them, and they started in 1998 with their development. It'll probably still be developing in 2070 with how large that project is, absorption rates. Right now, they're focusing on the valley floor between Walmart and City Market, if you're familiar with that area, but they do have property on the north side that's adjacent to the state landmark property. In order for that to be developed, it requires a full regular road with 2 accesses. And so one access has to come down the hill from above, then the other access, I think some of the plans show where there could be an access through some of the state landboard property. The state landboard side estimate 3 years ago was 25 million. And if we look at construction costs, well, it's already 30 to 35 today. It's no cheaper coming down the hill from the other side. So I see 60 million probably to put that together. That turns into very elaborate public financing and opportunities to partner with Traer Creek, but also very complex and very large commitments to actually get that in. I think there's potential for us to collaborate with Traer Creek and have a higher density of affordable housing. There's no need for more luxury condos. Of course, developers still like building luxury condos, and that will continue to happen. But and I just if you're familiar with Summit County, no one's fallen over themselves to say, "Hey, we need more really expensive condos." Plenty of that. So the economics of
of getting affordable housing together. And I think what makes it underwater or upside down from the get-go is even if the land is free, it still requires significant public subsidy to be able to get these projects to come to fruition affordable. And so when you add in the cost of buying land and the cost of getting an infrastructure, that just further complicates it. So I think there's opportunity, and by acquiring on the north side, that puts us in a direct relationship over in Cherry Creek, which has some efficiency to it. But to be honest, I think it's probably a coin flip for at best, whether anything happens on the north side could just be open space. So
thank you.
Long-winded way of saying it's just again, thank you for considering this. If we move forward, it's an opportunity for us to spend a lot more money and do a lot more work. Pursue this.
Yes. Thank you for that. All right, may I have a motion? One of the commissioners? Yes, madam.
We have a revised board order.
We do. I have it here. Do you all have it? Was it passed around or?
It was not passed around.
If someone's gonna make it happy over there,
If you.
would you like to do it? Otherwise I could read it for everyone.
We have a firebox fire print board from the last horrible fire season, with birth certificates and social security
I have
cards.
3 cats and 8 guitars I have to grab.
I have, well, the dogs are first. The dogs are first. Yeah, for sure. But thank you for that consideration. After consideration of the materials presented and testimony given today, at our meeting of April 9th, the board determines that, and presented to this commission, both in our meeting and in executive session, the board determines it's in our best interest. It's in the best interest of the trust to authorize staff to negotiate direct exchange of the annexation parcel as defined in Exhibit 2 in the remaining area north of the railroad ROW. I think that's fine to say for purposes of this. A total area of approximately 75.725 acres to the town of Avon for an amount not less than the fair market value, and subject to the terms that protect the interest of the trust. The board determines that the purpose of this disposal is to add value to adjoining state land board land. The board delegates authority to the director to take appropriate action consistent with the board's decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Scanlon. May I have a second?
Second, Jim Pribble, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Pribble. All right, let's move to a vote. Commissioner Scanlon?
Aye.
Commissioner Heath?
Aye.
Commissioner Pribble?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Eric,
Thank you very
Kyle, for being here.
Best of luck. We will hope for good things.
And thank you for letting us meet in your town hall
Yeah.
several years
Yeah.
ago.
Anytime.
It was very fun to see that.
And
Michaela.
drive safely. We'll just drive back.
All right. We have the board leasing agenda in front of us.
Yep. And Deputy Director Nick Massey here for the record to present the board leasing agenda for April 2026 on behalf of Andy Bissett and the Transactions and Records Services team. I would like to make a note that the BLA as printed needs an amendment. Item number 1, which was the competitive bid process, has received a request for review from one of the parties. And so we're going to pull that from this BLA officially and add it to a future agenda for discussion by the board as the request for review. So the agenda before you is actually just items 2 through 5. And I also wanted to make a brief note that item 4 has a nice big juicy number on it for the value of that lease, and some subsequent conversations following publishing of the board packet. That number is going to come down a little bit. in terms of planning, value from the planning part of that project, a little less space was needed than was originally planned, but still significant value coming off that lease. And so what staff would like to suggest is that we'll put the new number in the minutes version of the board leasing agenda, so you'll see it. It'll still be 7 figures and pretty appreciable. So unless there are any questions, certainly happy to have a motion to approve that BLA as amended out loud.
Commissioners, I don't suppose you have any questions? Is there anyone listening online who has a comment on this revised leasing agenda?
Folks listening along online, if you would like to make a comment on the board leasing agenda, which has been amended to be items 2 through 5 only for April, please use the raise hand feature and we'll bring you to the board so you can speak. I'm not seeing any hands, Commissioner.
Excellent. All right, may I have a motion to adopt and approve the board leasing agenda for April?
So Madam Chair, I move that we approve the board leasing agenda for April 2026 as approved in our packet.
Thank you, Commissioner Heath. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Pribble. Commissioner Scanlon, how do you vote? Aye. Commissioner Heath?
Aye.
Commissioner Pribble?
Aye.
Commissioner Harvey?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. The agenda is approved for April 5-0. Somehow this lost me.
Minutes. Minutes.
But in the minute. Great, in the minutes. Unless a commissioner has any modification or comment to the minutes, I move they be approved by acclamation. And on the information items, take it away, Director.
Thank you, Chair. Just one thing to underscore from the staff report, we now have a new office manager and executive administrator, and that is Jenny Minnick, and she is just wonderful, and we welcome her.
We're excited. All right, and then
I'll just make for the record a brief note again, Deputy Director Nick Massey. Just commissioners provided you a memo on where things sit with the 1332 work group effort. Gave you kind of a rundown of where we've been and where we're headed. The next meeting of that group is a week from today, virtual. The DNR publishes a website for the work group. And so instructions on how to access that are available there, and we'll be happy to bump that around if you'd like to have it again. The group is in the thick of starting to form recommendations, and staff remains appreciative of the opportunity to represent the technical advisory group and Director Rose Marino, as well as just being a source of answers for lots of questions that come up. This is a very complex project. Happy to be a part of it. So,
and very complex means very time consuming for staff. So I appreciate all the good work staff is doing to educate and inform people.
Thanks.
yes, thank you very much for that. And then the last item, which is a placeholder on our agenda, but I'd like to add something for consideration by my fellow commissioners, is the commissioner topics. And in light of, and Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Pribble, I'm not sure you've been perhaps as engaged in some of the review, discussion, and evolution of potential legislation, specifically, I think it's Senate Bill 139. But as with another bill that passed last year, Senate Bill 167, there are good efforts to advance good works in the legislature, but we have found that a number of the actors are not aware of some of the particular problems, constitutional or otherwise, with some of the proposed legislation. And while it may appear that particularly 139 is not going to progress this year for some of the reasons that we have all discussed, I would propose that the board draft a letter or a memo or some kind of document that is shareable with some key legislators and even the EDO and whatever, that helps characterize some of the issues that we see with this legislation, so that in considering legislation in the future, people will be aware of some of the issues that we feel strongly about and that we are more aware of than some of our legislative counterparts. So throwing that out, basically us crafting a letter from the Board of Commissioners with their ideas about some of the issues presented by the past legislation. So does anyone have a thought or comment?
I wholeheartedly agree. Just in my exchanges with a couple of legislators, I don't think it's their fault. I think they're just unaware of some of the implication and dominoes, if you will. And I think some of it is the combination of last year's legislation, 167, which also needs fixing and guardrails. And there are constitutional concerns. There's impact concerns on the permanent fund that I think need articulating. And it would be in our interest, both as an opportunity to do education and some outreach and serve as a resource. It would be wonderful if people would consult us and get our thoughts and opinions and help in crafting legislation, because I think we could be a good resource and we could offer, insights, even ideas. It'd be great if we could be proactively engaged and maybe not have to come to a place where we feel like we're playing defense in some of these instances. So I'm very supportive of that. I would love to empower you as our chair and as our representative on the PFIB to do so. I think Director Rose Moreno has good insights as well. And certainly with our ledge liaison at DNR, as a conduit to how to reach the right committees and legislators. I think from my former role as a legislator, in all fairness, I didn't understand all of these things. Fully the state land board, certainly not the impacts to the permanent fund. I think almost no one does at the Capitol, and that's not a criticism, it's just a reality. And I think it would be helpful.
I think we could help just eliminate these issues, having lived through it for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think it could benefit.
And by the way, I understand the issues that are involved, and I understand the urgency around some of the realities facing education
and housing
and all the other. There's a myriad of issues, in a state that underfunds education. But there's also we have a fiduciary responsibility in our roles as well. And I think there's a near-term set of issues and then a longer term series of impacts that we can help to highlight.
I think our perspective is unique to all the other stakeholders who are promulgating this legislation. And we don't often have a means to share it. And I feel like this is the time where we might share it. Turning to Commissioner Harvey or Commissioner Pribble, have you any ideas, thoughts, or questions on this proposal?
I agree with Commissioner Scanlon that we have a open communication with legislators. And I don't know the rhythm of the Colorado legislature as well as a lot of you, but I wonder if there should be some regularity with it, quarterly or something, where the chair and the director meets to talk about stuff we've talked about, obstacles we have in trying to get what we're trying to get done. It probably is a certain lack of just understanding of our agenda with legislation that doesn't work or lack of legislation.
I agree wholeheartedly. This could open a door and serve members of the education committee.
Right.
Hey, if you have idea or you're thinking about running legislation, talk to us.
Exactly.
We can be a resource.
Yeah, and save people a lot of time and effort on the front end.
Yes.
Commissioner Heath?
I share these thoughts. I just want to emphasize that it's not that we have concerns. It is rather that we have a fiduciary responsibility to a trust. And that is what really drives me as I look at the constitutional issues that I think are part of our trust guardian responsibilities.
Well, I echo that. And as standing, we have to oppose the current legislation. But there's ongoing concerns that we have in regard to the health of the trust that also could be highlighted.
Well, I feel like we're really the only people situated to take the long view, the 7-generation view of actions taken today.
Yeah.
Commissioner Pribble, any thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I am troubled. We've had a distinct lack of transparency on legislation for the past 3 months, period. I don't know who's responsible for that, if it's DNR or governor's office or whatever, but we haven't been briefed much at all. We haven't been included in the discussion if I correct about that. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry.
Yeah, This has been highlighted every legislative update that we've had. The problem is it's being introduced. Frankly, I had insight that was not going to be introduced, and then it was, so the legislative process, Jim, fits and starts, and then all of a sudden everything's running, and it's kind of a frantic energy. And so it is not a lack of communication, I think, from this end. It's just, it is hard to keep up with the Capitol. And so that is the latest news, is we didn't think this was going to have a hearing. All of a sudden it's having a hearing. So you have the update, and it has been tracked through DNR, and the legislative updates is on the list every week.
Yeah, I think
every week,
a big improvement.
It's just all of a sudden it showed up.
Yeah. But I think what we're saying too is we want to get ahead of that.
We want to get ahead of it.
And have.
Now we want to get ahead of it.
Publish a letter. But good, thank you for your thoughts, and thank the rest of the commissioners for that, and we'll move that forward and take the next step. And before we close the meeting, Director Rosmarino.
Thank you, Chair. One last thing, I just wanted to announce a special board workshop on April 20th that will focus on the strategic plan. So make sure you have that on your calendars from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And it's already been posted on our website, so the public can attend if they choose to. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, staff, for pulling us off. I'm delighted we were in Lamar and saw chickens. And we'll leave it there.
And thank you for getting me finished in time.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen.
2 minutes to spare.
Thank you.
Let's not waste it.
I had all the faith. I had all the faith.